I want to play for you some comments that Pete Townshend made about Jimi Hendrix, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about those comments, and then I'm going to play you something that Jimi Hendrix said that I think really helps put those comments in perspective. But first, before I play the clip, I want to remind you that I've put 5 interesting myths and or facts about Jimi Hendrix in the description box below, so have a look over those. Listen to what Pete Townshend had to say about his memories of Jimi Hendrix.
Jimmy said some very, very precious things. They weren't meant necessarily for the world to hear, but to me they were very important. All right, they were said when he was drunk and so on, but they were said. They've always been important. And that was, he always felt, Eric and he and I, had a sort of an empathy. And although I knew that to be true at heart, I could never see myself in the triangle, could never fit in. In fact, the bit where I fitted in was in the least glamorous bit, was in the plastic bit, the stage bit. I was the very plastic bit of Jimmy's stage show, and Eric, of course, was the very soulful bit, the musician bit, the far more romantic thing. Mine was the blatant, the showbiz, the years on the road with Little Richard, the act.
Alright, so first of all, what I think he's trying to get at there with Hendrix is that he didn't see why Jimmy would put The Who in the same category as Eric Clapton and Hendrix himself because of the blues factor, because of the fact that Pete Townshend isn't really a blues guitar player and The Who weren't necessarily a blues band. Blues influenced for sure, but they definitely weren't as stridently steep in the blues as Hendrix and Clapton, and so if Jimmy had said, well, Eric and I are doing a lot to revolutionize blues and bring it into the modern age and also break down racial barriers, I think Pete Townshend would have found that quite easy to comprehend. But I think the fact that Hendrix threw The Who in there into this triangle is what kind of confused Pete Townshend a little bit, because he saw himself as doing something much more based in operatic music and theater of the stage, and so he's trying to see what did Jimmy really glom onto from what The Who was doing. And in his mind, it was the visual presentation, the destruction of the equipment on stage, lighting the guitar on fire, and taking the performance to a level of almost social protest, which was quite in vogue at the time, given that it was the late 60s. But I think that Townshend's missing something important from what Hendrix was probably trying to say there. We're reconstructing stories that took place many decades ago, but we have Hendrix here speaking. This is from an interview in 1969 in Dallas that Hendrix did just as he was getting on a plane, I think. So let's listen to what he had to say here.
Consider yourself a dropout from society?
Not necessarily, no. Because we're making our own society, if you give us a chance. They might, I shouldn't say that. No, I love that dropout, man. I'm still living and breathing just like you. We just look a little different, that's all. We just have different ways of expressing ourselves, which should be the free point of view anyway,
Your lyrics seem to have quite a bit of sophistication for what people in America consider a high school dropout should be writing.
Yeah, well, so we're for anybody that's going to get themselves together, We're not for the whole lot of people sitting around in the big drug den, sitting around complaining. It's sitting around and still trying to get themselves together some kind of way, Regardless if it's a dropout of society or whatever it might be, or if it's the people in society. But to get anybody's mind together, because the idea now is to communicate. Not to knock one another, rebel and all this. Well, quite naturally, you have to start somewhere, so you go to the rebellious. The idea is to communicate.
Alright, now that is what I think that Hendrix is driving at. If he said, as Townshend reports here, that The Who, Clapton, and Hendrix experience, or Jimi Hendrix himself, formed kind of a triangle, that would be for the ability to communicate, and not only communicate across racial lines, but across musical lines, and across class lines, and across national identity. So British and American, black and white, old and young, break down the old barriers, and this is part of why I think he would have included The Who, because The Who was drawing attention to the struggle that was going on with the young people in the world, whereas Clapton was drawing attention to the cultural richness that was right under America's feet without them basically realizing their own musical history. And Hendrix himself was a phenomenon that transcended all barriers, including the barriers between R&B, pop, blues, psychedelia, whatever was going on. Hendrix found himself at the forefront of popular culture. He was looking around and seeing that, look, this is a platform that can be used to inspire people not toward mindless rebellion, but toward self-pride and bettering themselves as individuals no matter what they chose to do. It's not like he was advocating for a particular type of counterculture. He was advocating for individuality, and he saw the same thing happening with Zen. And while the urge toward individuality and cultural rebellion may be less evident in some of what Clapton was doing, the fact that he was playing blues music at all as an English performer is revolution enough. And the fact that he was popularizing this music is revolution enough. Now, none of this has to do at all with musical aptitude. It has to do with artistry. And if you look deeply into what Jimi Hendrix is saying there, he's saying there's no reason to topple down the social order in order to improve it. You simply have to approach it with greater depth of imagination and a wider range of what is viewed as, healthy or permissible. So in that interview, the interviewer called Jimi Hendrix a high school dropout twice in the space of 30 seconds. Well, Hendrix had accomplished more as an individual artist than the interviewer will ever accomplish in his life, and he probably did graduate from high school. So the idea that graduating from high school is in itself a standard is what needs to be questioned, not tearing down every high school in the world. So the idea that Jimi is driving at, that Townshend was also embodying in his work, and Clapton through his elevation of the blues to a popular art form, was a celebration of individuality. This is what I think, but what really matters is what you think. So if you have an idea about this or any other topic connected to classic or contemporary music, please drop it in the section below, and remember to like and subscribe. Also, if you're enjoying the video, you can click on the thanks button right down there below the video, or if you prefer, you can click on the Buy Me a Coffee link and leave a donation at Buy Me a Coffee site. Finally, if you find yourself in need of a financial boost, you can click on the Capital One link in the description box below and use their handy one-step application process to get yourself a new credit card. Thanks a lot.